thought I had discovered just another woman. But when I learned the second truth about my husband, I realized I had been living with a stranger for the last 7 years. If you enjoy emotional stories about betrayal, secrets, and unexpected justice, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Because what I discovered that night was something I never could have imagined. My name is Anna. I was 39 years old, and at that time, I lived with my husband, Markus, near Munich. We had been married for 12 years. At least, I thought we were happy. We had a beautiful apartment, a small garden, and a daughter who was 10 years old. Markus worked as a construction manager and was often away from home. I worked part-time at an insurance company. Our life wasn't exciting, but it was familiar. And sometimes you believe that familiarity means safety. Until that Tuesday evening, Markus had told me he was still with a client. I was sitting alone at the kitchen table, sorting through the mail. Between the bills and advertisements was a letter from a bank. I was about to leave it unopened on his desk. Then I saw the name. Not Markus. A woman. Clara Weber. I didn't know any Clara Weber. My heart started beating faster. I didn't open the letter. I simply placed it next to his laptop. Then, barely 5 minutes later, my phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. Only 6 words. You deserve to finally know everything. Underneath, it was a photo. I opened it, and I couldn't breathe. Markus was standing outside a restaurant. Next to him was a blonde woman. She was holding his hand. Not like a colleague, not like a friend, like a wife. I zoomed in on the picture. Then I noticed something that frightened me even more. There was a ring on the woman's finger, a ring I recognized. Markus had supposedly lost it 3 years earlier. At least, that's what he had told me. I stared at the picture until my hands began to shake. When Markus came home shortly after 10, I was still sitting in the kitchen. "You're still awake?" he asked as he put down his bag. I looked at him. "Who is Clara?" He stopped, only for a second, but I noticed it. His expression changed. Then he smiled. "Which Clara?" That sentence was worse than any explanation could have been. I pushed my phone across the table. The photo was still on the screen. Markus picked it up. His fingers suddenly became completely still. "Anna, it's not what you think." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because that was exactly the sentence people used when they were lying. "How long?" I asked. "How long what?" "How long have you been cheating on me?" He slowly sat down. It was a mistake for 7 years. He looked at me. I hadn't guessed the number. I already knew it, because in that moment, I remembered all the evenings when Markus supposedly had to work late, all the weekends when a customer suddenly needed his help, all the hotel bills I had never questioned. 7 years. I had believed his excuses for 7 years. But then Markus said something that changed everything. You don't understand, Anna. Clara isn't the problem. I stared at him in confusion. What does that mean? He said nothing. Then explain it to me. He stood up and walked toward the window. There are things I can't tell you. I felt my anger slowly turning into something else. Fear. Why not? Markus turned around. His face had suddenly gone pale. Because afterward, you might not want to live with me anymore. I thought he was talking about the affair. I thought it was all about Clara. But I had no idea how wrong I was. Because that same night, after Markus fell asleep, I took his old laptop from the study. I only wanted to know how long he had been lying to me. I found emails, photos, hotel reservations, gifts. Everything was there. But then I discovered a folder protected by a password. The folder's name was nothing but a date. October 17, 2019. I knew that date. It was the day our daughter was born. My heart began racing. Why would Markus protect a secret folder using our daughter's birthday? I tried one password. Nothing. Then another. Nothing. Then I remembered something Markus had said years earlier. I typed it in. The folder opened, and what I found inside had nothing to do with Clara. It was about our daughter, and suddenly I asked myself a terrifying question. Maybe the man I had loved for 12 years hadn't only hidden his affair from me. Maybe he had hidden something much, much bigger. I sat in front of the laptop for several minutes, unable to move. There were no love letters in the folder, no photos of Clara. Instead, I found documents, bank statements, emails, contracts, and one name kept appearing again and again. Lena Hoffman, our daughter. I opened the first file. It was a bank account in Lena's name. There was almost asterisk 48, 000 euros in it. I stared at the number. Where had all that money come from? Our daughter was only 10 years old. We had saved some money for her future, but never anything close to that amount. Then I saw the transfers. Every month, since the day she was born, they were coming from an account I didn't recognize. A knot formed in my throat. Why had Markus been hiding money for our daughter? And why had he never told me? I opened an email. It was 7 years old. The sender was Clara Weber. I started reading. Markus, you can't keep pretending everything is normal. Anna will have to find out what happened eventually. My hands went cold. What had happened back then? I scrolled down. The next message was even worse. If you don't tell her the truth, I will. I closed the laptop. I couldn't take any more. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. Markus, I didn't delete the files. I simply closed the laptop and put it back where I had found it. Then I went into the bedroom and pretended to be asleep. A few seconds later, the door opened. Markus stood there in the darkness. He said nothing, but I heard him pick up the laptop. He opened it. Then he whispered, "Damn it." I kept my eyes closed. My heart was beating so loudly that I thought he must be able to hear it. The next morning, Markus was unusually kind. He made breakfast. He took Lena to school. And before he left, he even kissed me on the forehead. "We need to talk tonight," he said. I looked at him. "Yes," I replied, but I already knew that I was no longer the same woman I had been the day before. I started investigating on my own, not in panic, not emotionally. I stayed calm. I photographed the most important documents with my phone and saved them somewhere safe. Then I called my friend Sophie. She was a lawyer and one of the few people I truly trusted. I didn't tell her everything. Not yet. I simply sent her a photo of one of the bank statements. Her reply came a few minutes later. "Anna, where did you get this?" "From Markus." There was a long silence. Then she wrote, "Please don't confront him yet." I asked, "Why?" Her answer frightened me. "Because you need to know what this money means first." So I waited. And while I waited, I started watching Markus, not as his wife, but as if I were seeing him for the first time. He suddenly took his phone everywhere, even into the bathroom. Whenever a message arrived, he went into another room. And every time I mentioned Clara, he became nervous. But then something happened that I never expected. On Friday evening, someone rang our doorbell. I opened the door. Clara was standing there. I recognized her immediately. She looked different from the photo. Tired, pale, and she was holding a brown envelope. "Your Anna." I nodded. "Yes." She glanced behind me. "Is Markus here?" "No." Clara took a deep breath. Then she held out the envelope. "Then you need to read this alone." I took it. "What is it?" She looked directly into my eyes. "The truth about your husband." I was about to open the envelope when Clara suddenly held onto it. "Before you read it, you have to promise me something." "What?" "That you won't believe Markus immediately. No matter what he tells you." I pulled the envelope toward me. "Why should I believe you? You were his mistress." Clara lowered her eyes. "That's true." Then she said quietly, "But I'm not the woman you think I am." She turned around and walked away. I stood in the doorway. The envelope suddenly felt incredibly heavy. I didn't open it until I had locked the front door. Inside was a photograph. It showed Markus, but he wasn't with Clara. He was standing beside an older man. The man was lying in a hospital bed. I knew him. It was my father. I felt dizzy. My father had been seriously ill in 2019 and had died a few months later. I sat down. Under the photograph was a letter. I started reading, and after only a few lines, I realized that the affair had only been the surface of the story. Markus had secretly met my father shortly before his death, and my father had given him something, something Markus had hidden from me for 7 years. A document. I read the final line of the letter, and finally, I understood why the account for Lena existed. My father had asked Markus to protect money for his granddaughter, but there had been one more condition, a condition I had never known about. If Markus agreed to do it, he could never tell me where the money came from. I placed the letter on the table. My anger didn't disappear. It became stronger, because suddenly everything seemed to make sense. Markus had cheated on me. He had lied to me. But at the same time, he might have been carrying out something my father had asked him to do. The question was, why did he have to bring Clara into our lives to do it? The next morning, I drove to Sophie's office. I placed all the documents in front of her. She read them in silence. Then she said, "Anna, I think we need to find out who originally owned this money." "Why?" Sophie pointed to a name on the bank statement. "Because it looks like your father didn't leave this money alone." I stared at her. "What do you mean?" She pointed to one of the transfers. "Look at the date." I did. My fingers went cold. The transfer had been made only 3 days before my father died. And the sender wasn't my father. It was a company whose name I knew very well, because it was the company Markus had worked for back then. I stood up. "That's impossible." Sophie grabbed my hand. "Sit down." "No." I walked toward the window. Markus told me he was only working there as a construction manager. Sophie said nothing. I turned around. What else is he hiding from me? At that exact moment, I received a message from an unknown number. Only one sentence. "If you really want the truth, ask your husband who owns the house." I read the message twice. Then I looked at Sophie. "Our house." She slowly nodded. That same evening, I obtained a copy of the property records, and there was a name I never expected to see. Not Markus, not me, not even Lena, my father. But that was impossible. My father had been dead for 7 years, and suddenly I understood. The real betrayal might not have been the affair. Maybe Markus had been taking something away from me all these years, something that already belonged to me, but I still didn't know why. And that was exactly what I was going to ask him that night.